All right, today I'm going to talk about LinkedIn, which is the most critical geospatial tool that you will ever use. Yeah, you heard me correctly. LinkedIn is a critical tool for geospatial professionals, even though you will never use it for geospatial analysis. What LinkedIn is capable of doing is helping you stand out in the industry, whether you're looking for a job or not. It can connect you with a wide amount of people that are actually using LinkedIn as geospatial professionals. And probably most importantly, it can actually act as your geospatial portfolio, or at least an entryway to it on the web. In this video, we're gonna go through some of my top tips to help you make a really complete LinkedIn profile that will really stand out. And also make sure you stay tuned to the end where I'll share a few of my top tips to really make compelling posts that will help you grow and establish yourself on the platform. Before we jump in, let's talk a little bit about why this matters. LinkedIn is one of the most important places, whether you want to build your portfolio, establish your career, or if you're looking to make a job change. If you reach an all-star level profile on LinkedIn, you're 40 times more likely to be contacted about a job opportunity and 18 times more likely to show up in search results on LinkedIn. On top of this, LinkedIn is fast becoming the central place to look for new job postings, connect with recruiters and others at companies you might want to work at, and ultimately be found anywhere in a professional setting. No matter how good your SEO is, it's going to be far easier for someone to find you in a professional setting on LinkedIn than it is going to be on your personal website or portfolio. Now look, I'm not just going to talk about how you can use LinkedIn to create a really compelling profile, but also how you can engage and use posts to also further your career ambitions. And look, in no way am I advocating for LinkedIn cringe.
Meanwhile, as a social network, its most successful users employ a very specific tone.
LinkedIn is mega cringe.
Cringe.
Look, LinkedIn has effectively become your digital business card online. If you search your name plus your job title or company, there's a pretty good chance that the first result is actually going to be your LinkedIn profile. So you might as well invest some time into really making it impactful and work for what you want. Look, there's already a lot of great guides on how to optimize your LinkedIn profile, and there's a lot of different places to look for this information. But here's a video from a YouTuber, Jeff Sue, that I also follow that I really enjoy and has a lot of tangible tips. We're going to cover some of these really quickly so you understand these and can put those into place in addition to some other tips that I found useful as well. Now, there's one specific tip I'm going to share before we jump into everything else. And that is one rule that I have for everything that I do online, no matter that's writing or putting code together or anything, even videos like this. It's that you shouldn't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. It's better to have something out there rather than to sit an idea and make it so perfect that you wait to actually get it out there. Once you actually share something on LinkedIn or any other digital medium for that matter, it's really like an asset of yours that's out there that's building and growing over time. And I apply that same concept to pretty much everything I do on LinkedIn. Is everything on my page perfect? Absolutely not. Is every post I have perfect? Is everything spelled correctly even? Not all the time. So I definitely recommend thinking about that. I would get started in small baby steps, and the best part is it's really easy to change this stuff if you don't like it in the future. All right, so Jeff's first tip is to use a really high quality profile photo and cover photo. Now, you don't have to overdo these, so just get something that really looks nice, and frankly, most cameras on your phones will work really great for this stuff. In fact, that's what I use for all my videos anyways. Now, you can do a few simple edits, but don't overdo it. Jeff has some good ideas on his video on that topic using Canva and other tools. You don't have to go crazy on a cover photo either, having too much personal branding or anything like that. I used to have just a satellite image of New York City at night for years and years, so you don't have to go too crazy with that either. And please, 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 no wedding photos. Everyone can see that those are flowers from a wedding, and no one wears a tuxedo in a real life.
I don't know. Is it classy enough?
Now, Jeff's next tip is optimizing your headline. As you can see here, it's right at the top of your profile, and it's gonna show up in every search result like you can see here. So this is one of the first things that anyone is gonna see when they come across your profile. Now, normally this will just default to your job title and the company that you work at, so job title at company, but you can customize this to really be anything that you want. This could be something that you aspire to, something you're really good at, whatever that is. But I think there's a simple formula that you can use to just really get started and get it out there, and then you can always change it later. So Jeff's tip is actually to have two things. First is your job title, and then the second is the value that you bring. So if you think of it this way, if your job title is GIS analyst, and then you provide value by analyzing environmental conditions or performing community analysis for a specific city, you can kind of combine those two things together to tell exactly what you do. You can also harness this towards a career goal that you have. Like if you say you want to be an urban GIS analyst or an environmental GIS analyst, and some of the value you provide is understanding climate conditions to improve communities in blank city. That's something you can add as well. If you get stuck at all, I would use some generative AI tools like ChatGPT or Bard to actually put in some of the things that you want and spit out a few creative titles. And frankly, that's what I did with the ones I just told you anyways. The other thing that I wouldn't worry too much about is actually this about section. As you can see, it's lower on your profile. Pick 3 key points that you want to put in there, add some emojis, make it look nice, but don't overdo it. Now, the next topic is to create a really detailed description for your current job role. That's going to be the job that's at the top of your profile and the thing that most people are going to look at right away. The main points to include is first a clear statement about what you do and what you were able to accomplish in that role or are currently accomplishing. Next, you want to have a few key metrics that point out exactly what you did, how it was, and how it was measured, more importantly. And then finally, what you want to add at the end are a few case studies. Maybe this was a project that you did or something specific that stands out that's relevant for people to know. Another key tip here is to actually include terms that you're looking for if you are in a job search. So if you have a job that you're actually looking for and you have a few job descriptions, you can once again just throw those into a generative AI tool and say pull out the key phrases or keywords within that and let that do the work for you, and then sprinkle those into those descriptions because that will actually enhance those words as searches for people looking for you on LinkedIn. The next tip is actually in the skills section, and you can add, I think, up to like 50 skills or something like that. There is a limit and you can add as many as you want, but the important thing to remember that Jeff points out here is actually to add 5 total that you will actually get recommendations for. So once again, if you're looking for a job, this is a really important place to actually go in there and grab those words and maybe add those skills in there as your top 5. And you can actually use LinkedIn to request recommendations from others, like you can see here. And actually having a recommendation is actually going to boost those skills as more important when people search for you on LinkedIn. So having those recommendations is really important. All right, so here are some of my tips that I've found really helpful when you're building your profile on LinkedIn. The first one is actually right here, and this is this one link that you get at the top of your profile that can link to anything that you want. This could be your portfolio, a personal website, maybe the website of the company you work for, or even I don't know, your GitHub portfolio. Instead of sending this out to one specific location, what I actually recommend doing is using a service like Linktree or some link website that you can put several different links in there to suggest people see other things that you're doing. So once they click that, they can actually open this up and see other things that you're doing. Here's the one that I use. I just use a WordPress plugin on my WordPress website to do this, but the same thing can be accomplished with Linktree, and I'm sure there's other services that do the same thing as well. Now you can actually keep the link URL in there if you want, but I actually recommend typing something, and you have to keep it short since there's a limit of 30 characters, so think very carefully, and also maybe include some emojis pointing to it or something to make sure that it stands out. There's one other rule that I have on LinkedIn, which is actually try to limit the amount of things that you send people out to. You should really focus on where you send people when they click away in terms of an external link on LinkedIn, because a lot of the algorithm is driven towards engagement. So you want people to spend time on your page before they actually end up somewhere else. And this actually brings me to my next point, which is this featured section here. As you can see, there's a few different tiles that you can have and that actually allow you to feature things like links or images or posts or anything else within that. But there's a specific strategy that I would recommend to you to actually test out and use rather than just putting anything else up there. As you can see here, you get 3 different tiles, as I'll call them, on the first page. When you click over using this arrow, you get 2 additional tiles, and then you get an arrow to see anything else behind that. So in effect, you can pick your top 5 things that you want to put there. That can be anything that you want to do, but I recommend actually for those first 3 tiles to have it be 2 and 1. The first 2 should actually be posts that you actually share on LinkedIn that reference other work that you've done or talk about a specific project. And we'll talk a little bit about why this is important later. That second one should actually be an image that says learn more about me or my profile or anything else. And that can actually link out to your external portfolio website. I really focus on those 3 because that's what 95% of people are actually going to see. They can see some of your top posts or other things that you've done that's specific to your work and once again your career goals there. And then should they want to discover more, there's an easy link for them to access that and get out to other projects or things that you've done. Now, I really recommend using posts there because it keeps people in the platform while also learning about some of the work that you've done. And they can also engage on that by liking it or sharing it or commenting or something like that, which also helps boost the visibility of those posts over time. That third link, if they're interested enough to actually click out to that, they'll be able to click that and go over to your awesome, amazing portfolio website. Speaking about portfolios, I want to talk a little bit about today's sponsor, which is Hostinger. Hostinger is a really great great hosting and web service that I actually switched all my websites over to within the last few months. I actually did this before anything was sponsored on this video, so I'm talking as an actual customer here. What's really great is I actually got more out of the platform and I'm saving money at the same time. Previously, I had to pay for each individual service that I consumed. That would include hosting, email, SSL certificates, security, support, hosted WordPress, you name it, the list goes on. Hostinger has really straightforward pricing plans that include all these things and a lot more. I currently use the business plan, which has 100 websites that I can use. It includes hosting, SSL, additional backups, security, monitoring domains, and more. And like I said, I'm saving a lot of money just by switching to this plan. I use WordPress for almost all my websites, and Hostinger has a simple one-click deployment to set up a new WordPress website in a matter of minutes. On top of that, it includes an AI assistant inside of WordPress and a global CDN to make sure your content loads very, very quickly. Now, if you want to build a website super quickly, like a portfolio, and you don't want to spend much time doing it, Hostinger actually has this really cool AI service that allows you to type in the website that you want and it'll actually build the entire thing for you. In fact, I use this service to build up the website for my Spatial SQL book, which is available now, and you can check the website out at spatial-sql.com. Now back to the rest of the video, I mentioned that those two first panels in your featured section should actually include LinkedIn posts. And I want to dive into this a little bit more and understand the anatomy of a post to make them really effective for what you're trying to accomplish. Now, the reason behind this, like I said, is engagement. Think of it this way. Let's say one person likes your post. That will then be shared to their entire network, someone in their network shares it, and so on and so forth. This is the best way to take advantage of the network connections with LinkedIn to make sure you're reaching out and it's seen by a lot of people that you might want to be in touch with for your professional goals. I like to think of these almost as mini blog posts, so you don't have to talk about an entire project in one. You could take one project that you've done and break it into multiple parts. Maybe there was something that was specifically challenging or interesting that you want to call out. Maybe there's some cool result from that you want to share as well. And this is the approach I recommend, sharing multiple posts about one project or one specific thing that you've done, and it actually allows you to create a lot of posts from one single thing. Now, let's take a look at the anatomy of the post here, and this is really important because there's three things I want to point out that are important to remember. First is that you see here is that you actually have the first line or sentence of the post itself, and this is what everyone will see if they're scrolling through their feed on the web or on their phone, is that everyone's going to see that first sentence. The next is the body, which includes maybe a video, a link, or the landing page of the website, or even something like an image, and we'll talk about what you should put here in a second. And then the last bit is the comments. Now this is always going to be there. It's empty if there's nothing else there, or you can add your own comment to get things started. So let's start at the top, is that first sentence in your LinkedIn post should really be the key thing that you want to focus on. You don't have to make this too crazy of a hook, but try to get as much information in there about what you're sharing so that someone will maybe look at it further or ideally click the link in the bottom. The rest of the post you can include more detail or other things, mentions and hashtags and stuff like that, but really focus that first sentence to get someone's attention when they're scrolling through their feed. The next bit is actually where the body of the post is. And like I said, this could be an image, or if you share a link in your post, it will try to show the preview image of that link. I absolutely do not recommend sharing links within the body of the post unless you really don't want someone to see them, because they're probably going to have to open it up and then click out to it. Now, when you do share a link, it's going to send someone off the platform. And although I have no scientific evidence to back this up, I do believe that LinkedIn actually tries to prioritize posts that keep people in the platform. So sharing the link here is not a good idea. What I do recommend is actually including an image. Now, this can be a screenshot or something of your project, a map, an image, anything that you want to put there, but I definitely recommend changing that to be an image. There's a few different image types that I've seen that have worked really well. Obviously, everyone loves looking at maps, so if you have a really compelling map or visualization, I would definitely use that. Sometimes things like network analyses or satellite imagery work really well for some reason. And then the last one is always logos of technology. Anytime I've seen a collection of logos or different things like that, those posts always do really well for some reason. So if you have built a specific project using different technologies, this might be a way to approach that. Now, if you remember that third section, which is actually the comments, this is where you do want to include a link to anything that goes outside of the website. This could be a link to that project or maybe something on your portfolio website, but here's where you put that link. I would add a little emoji pointing to it so people make sure that they see it, but since the comment's always going to be there, it's dead space unless you use it, so that's why I recommend putting your link down there. You can add a little call out in the top of the post here so people see it, but always put your links in the comments. Now, when we talk about others' posts, you can certainly comment and share and react on others' posts, but I don't think you should force it. This should always be natural, and you should really have something to add to the conversation. But as you see fit, engage with others' posts, comments, and things like that. It's always good to share and get connected with other people this way too. Now, one last tip is that LinkedIn recently rolled out what are called collaborative articles. And these are, from what I can gather, generative AI articles that have been built by a computer about a number of different topics. And from there, it allows you to effectively add your own commentary to the post to talk about one section of that topic. Now, when you comment on enough of these in a specific topic, you get this little badge at the top here that says you are the top voice in this specific category. Now, you can contribute to any number of topics, but you only get one top voice category. So before you do anything else, I would definitely focus on one category that's important to you and your career goals. Now, they kind of hid where these are, but here's the link where you can actually get to those. I'll put it in the description as well. And then you can actually go through and see the different topics that they have here. Everything from sustainability, urban design, real estate, construction, education, marketing, healthcare, public administration, transportation, so on and so forth. They also have topics on GIS and post-GIS. So if you're on the technology side, this is definitely one place that you can start. But if we remember back to our career goals and our headline, if you want to actually place yourself in the conversation for a specific industry or topic, I would actually recommend picking something from there first. This allows you to establish a really unique voice in that category, talking about your geospatial perspective rather than just adding a geospatial perspective to geospatial technology. And again, if you're looking for jobs in this industry, having that little badge here is just one extra thing that's going to help you stand out amongst the crowd. Now, even with all this great stuff in place, you still have to be proactive about posting regularly and sharing and keeping up with that. Or if you're looking for a job, reaching out to different companies and recruiters and trying to find different ways into the jobs that you ultimately want to be in. Like with most things, you get out of LinkedIn what you put into it. So that continual keeping up and working with it is going to be really important over time. There's no hard rule for how many times you should post or engage per week. You have to pick a goal that works really well for yourself, your time, and also your comfort using a platform like this. Once you set a goal, I think it's logical to try and stick to that. Maybe that's 1 time a week, 3 times a week, whatever that is for you. And then from there, I actually recommend taking a few ideas and putting those on paper to try and create some posts over time so you're not always scrambling the next day to try and hit your goal. I do this regularly if I have some ideas about certain things, or if I bookmark something, I just bookmark that in Notion and then save it for later. And no matter what, LinkedIn is a really great tool. And the most important thing, I think, is that there is a really great community, and specifically a geospatial and GIS community. There's lots of different ways to do this. I'll share some links to some different groups and communities that you can actually get started with on LinkedIn. So if nothing else, there's a really vibrant, active community out there on LinkedIn talking about topics like this. So that's the video for today. Let me know what tips you took from this video and actually put into practice and how well they may have worked for you. You can add that to the comments, and from there, I'll see you next time.